Hello everyone. Welcome from a rather rainy Devon day in England. Just waiting as people are arriving. We'll start with an attunement. The weightlessness of your true being. So make yourself comfortable. If you'd like to, close your eyes. Today we're going to dive into a new transmission. And what I'm going to share is very powerful indeed. And it may even be the most powerful information that you ever receive in your life. So it's up to you if you decide to put it into practice. There is inside each of us a natural mechanism for the manifestation of our dreams. And this isn't, however, the same thing as the popular version of how to manifest your dreams. For example, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, which has been a massive bestseller across the world. This is very different from that, as you'll see. So take a deep breath. And remember the words of one of my favorite poets, Alexander Pope, who said, "A little learning is a dangerous thing. These shallow draughts intoxicate the brain." So sacred knowledge can be very easily misunderstood, and it can be very easily mistranslated. So I'm going to use this webinar to set the record straight as far as concerns the manifestation through the sphere of attraction. What are your dreams? If you were given 3 wishes, what would they be? Think about that. Most people might wish for more money, or better health, or more love in their lives. But I put it to you that there's actually only one dream. And that dream is the same for every single one of us. And it's the dream of freedom. It's the dream to know our utterly fulfilled state of consciousness. It's the dream to transcend our suffering. And all other manifestations of dreams are dressed up versions of this one dream that sleeps in every human being alive. So the world around us, the world of outside, it's not the real world. We don't see reality as it is. We see through a lens, through a glass darkly. We are asleep. Our brain, the way our brain works, the way in which we have been trained to think, it places thick walls over our reality. Our beliefs, our opinions, our conditioned reflexes, our emotional patterns, they're all lenses that distort the truth now with your consciousness, with your mind. And find the place where the veil lies at its thickest. It's easy to find that place. It's the place you feel least comfortable in your body. It's the place where the wound is darkest, where your pain is compacted the most intensely. So go there gently now. Maybe place your hand there if you like. Lay it softly and gently as a feather. It's okay to feel the depth of that numbness. We all feel it. It's the core of our shadow. And it may even move within our body, so it's not only in one place all the time. But the main thing is simply to begin acknowledging that it's there. And then if you're honest, isn't your deepest dream that this would be gone? That this grain of suffering that haunts you could be lifted from your body, from your heart? Wouldn't that be something? So imagine now, imagine yourself without this weight, without this heaviness, this numbness. Imagine the weight just gone, weightless. And I know it may be hard for some of us to imagine, but just give yourself that gift for a moment. Let a little soft smile curl around your face as you imagine what it might feel like to be you without the veil, you without the heaviness. You free, weightless, shining, open-hearted, whole, utterly, ineffably at peace inside yourself. Now hold both realities inside yourself. You in pain and you free from pain. One in each hand. You from the shadow and you from the city. And know that ours is the journey between these poles, and it's not a one-way journey, it's a two-way journey. We have to strive upwards in thought, in intent, in longing, in action, to free ourselves from this weight, to release ourselves from these shackles, from the pain. And we also have to surrender, to allow the beauty, the love, the truth, to allow it to descend into our lives and to open us up to higher realities, to other dimensions. So you see, we can look from both sides. And here's another big question for our attunement. Which universe do you choose to inhabit? The mechanical universe or the magical universe? Because we have fallen far. We have dropped like a dead weight stone into the heart of matter, into the material realm. Even the earth herself seems laboring beneath this weight, beneath this pressure, this karma, and yet there are other realms, there are other possibilities. And we've all but forgotten the existence of the magical universe. It's something we believed in childhood, but then as we grew older, we gradually stopped believing in it. It's hard to find an adult who still believes in magic. They're often ridiculed. But I'm not asking you to believe. I'm simply telling you the way it is. If you choose the mechanical universe, you will remain confined within its walls. If you choose the magical, then a whole new world will begin opening up inside you. And you'll see that the mechanical is simply the workings of the illusion. And a light will begin moving inside your body again. And that light will begin to transform those dark places inside, those numb places. And it will be uncomfortable to begin with. But after a while, you'll begin to realize that the light is always available to you. And that those shadows, even the deepest ones, well, their days are numbered. They are finite doorways into an infinite reality. So let's just conclude by resting our palms on our belly, on the navel, on the place where the shadows originate, the place where the light is buried the deepest. This is where our work will be, in the entire area below the diaphragm, the ribcage, below the ribcage. These three centers that are really one center, the root, the sacral, the navel, collectively the solar plexus. This is our cauldron. This is the place we will purify. This is where the change has to occur. This and this alone is the true secret. The secret of the ages, to magnetize the higher frequencies of light into this whirling field of darkness, of memory, of karma, of deep unbridled potential that's in us. Here within the wonder of your belly, that's where the secret lies hidden. So offer it your love, because it holds the secret to your final freedom, the weightlessness of your highest, most beautiful being. I've got a few things I'd like to say before I begin the transmission. I know that many of you have questions about this sphere, the sphere of attraction, and it's one of the steps in the Jinkies Golden Path program. And the sphere of attraction, it's a representation of a truth inside you. So when you first see your Jinkies, your hologenetic profile, you see all these spheres and you see all these words, and they all represent stages in our awakening. And they're all intimately connected. And here's something people find hard to grasp at first, that your profile, it's not an information center. It's not that kind of a profile. It's an interactive map. And as you contemplate it, so it comes alive. And if you contemplate a particular gene key or a particular shadow, it will manifest before you, either in yourself or via another. Either way, you're going to have to deal with it. So when you come to the sphere of attraction, you should understand that this is not the beginning. This is a deeper level, and it requires a deeper level of. It's part of the Venus sequence. It's part 2 of the Golden Path journey. So if you haven't begun the Golden Path program yet, this may well resonate with you, but it will also be hard for you. And it's advisable then that you begin at the beginning. And people keep asking me this question, can I start anywhere I like? And my response is, if you're digging for water, it's easier to dig where the water is nearest the surface. If you start digging where it lies really deep, it's going to be an arduous journey. And you're more likely to give up in frustration. So my advice is begin the Golden Path from the beginning. And then dig deeper as you go along. And it will be a natural progression in understanding and insight. So the Jinkies is not a mechanical system. It is a magical system. It is based upon fundamental, invisible, magical laws that govern all life forms. So if you are new to the Jinkies, there are 3 elements to it. And you need to use all 3 to get the full understanding. There's your profile with all these strange words on it. Then there's the book, which describes what some of these words mean and how the transformation works. And finally, there's the Golden Path program. And that answers all your questions about the profile. It explores the line numbers, you know, those numbers after the decimal points in your profile, the numbers that you can see. And it's the program that takes you by the hand and brings all the streams together and shows you how to apply this wisdom to your life. So it's vital. And here's an interesting statistic for you all. Of all the people that get a free profile, only about 10% go on to engage with the program itself. Despite it being so accessible and such good value, it costs the same as a haircut. I told someone the other day, well, a lady's haircut. And it can change your life forever. And by the way, this is not something I have a problem with, that it's 10%. It's just where humanity is. We're hungry, we're curious, but most of us are not quite ready to go into the source of our suffering because it takes guts. It takes a deep courage and it takes a deep self-love. So think about that before I unfurl this next transmission. What are you ready for? How serious are you, you know, in terms of finding what really is the essence of yourself? Are you just tinkering? Because your attractor field has brought you here before this wisdom, before me now. Are you going to take the dive, or are you simply going to move on to the next flower without drinking? Remember, these shallow drafts intoxicate the brain. And sooner or later, you're going to have to commit to a teaching that takes you all the way down the well. And if it isn't this one, it'll be another. So most of your questions are going to be answered by the Golden Path program. And if you want to know what your numbers mean, what the 23rd gene key line 4 in the sphere of attraction, for example, what does that mean? You're going to have to find out for yourself. I can give you my answer, but it won't become an embodied truth for you. It has to come from you. We all want instant answers. We want to be told nice things about ourselves. I know. The Jinkies will do that. This is the only profile I've ever come across that actually describes you as an enlightened being. But it's not just a game. These aren't just words. This is real. If you want those answers, you're going to have to take the journey yourself. So I'm not going to spend this webinar talking about the lines and the gene keys and what they mean. I've done that at length in the program, which you can get on the website, on the shop. I will touch on the lines, and I'll give some new insights about them briefly at the end. But the meat of what I have to say is about the cosmic backdrop behind this wisdom. And that's what this is going to be about, because that's what these transmissions are all about. They're about the magical rather than the mechanical. So I'm glad I've got that out of the way. Now we can begin. Swear not by the moon. In your hologenetic profile, you'll see that there are 11 spheres, and every sphere relates to a specific gene key and a line. And each of these gene keys are calculated by the positions of planets in the heavens when we're born. And these calculations also form the basis of another system called human design, a precursor of the gene keys. And in human design, there are two calculations derived from your birth time. There's the actual time of birth, and then there is another calculation made from that, and it's 88 degrees of the sun before you were born. So it's a moment in the womb. It's a key moment of imprinting in the geometry of your life. And this 88 degrees, it's such a mystery. What does it mean? And why 88? I had so many questions about that when I used to study human design and teach it. And I don't have time to do justice to that question right here. But what I will say is that the 88 degrees gives an offset geometry to life on Earth. If it were a 90-degree angle, for instance, life would be very, very different. There would be a flawless geometry to life. The 88 degrees actually concerns the angle that the photons from the sun take as they enter the rippling matrix of our energy body. And it isn't quite aligned. It's an offset geometry. It's asymmetrical. It also has to do with why the Earth is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees, approximately, to the plane of the ecliptic. Because nothing is quite straight here on planet Earth. And it's also why every human being alive has a deep sense of something not quite being right. You know that one? The body doesn't quite feel right. The mind doesn't quite feel right. Nothing is quite aligned. And we sort of feel that. And if you saw my last webinar about the great cycles of time, these yugas, you will have caught the idea that the Earth has gone through periodic changes in evolution. And what I didn't mention is that also it's gone through changes in geometry. And that there was a time in which the Earth's axis was indeed exactly aligned to the ecliptic. And we call that Eden. Everything in perfect alignment. The spheres moving in perfect harmony. Humans in another form in perfect harmony with all that is. But our solar system has changed. It has received many jolts, many cataclysms that have redesigned and reshaped its geometry. And thus the geometry, or what some call the cosmometry, of the life forms that live here have changed. Have you ever wondered, for instance, why your heart is on the left side of your body? And yet every human being alive feels love in the heart in the center of the chest. But the heart's on the left, but we feel it in the center. That's where our heart is, really. That's what we say. It's because that's where the heart belongs, in the center. But because of the axial tilt, everything, our very biology, our physiology, everything is offset. And once upon a time, a long time ago, the heart was in the middle of the chest. And one day, it will return there again. It's a weird one, hey? So, 88 degrees have caused a lot of trouble. Just 2 degrees out. It's the reason for suffering. Just 2 damn degrees. But it's also the reason for our story, our human story. It's where the legend of humanity springs from. And the sphere of attraction, it's calculated from the 88-degree position of the moon before you were born. You don't, by the way, have to understand any of this technically. It's just part of the story. And in human design, which also you don't have to understand. In human design, they say that these early calculations are rooted in unconscious patterns rather than conscious patterns. And in part, that may well be true. But what is more true is that these 88-degree positions, they concern the underlying geometry of our energy matrix. It's not so much that they are unconscious, but that they are like this cosmic blueprint that coordinates our trajectory through life. They're like a laser-guided system woven into our being that's constantly adjusting our movement through the events of our life. So if you can attune to these deep patterns, then you can actually change your destiny. It's not actually that you change it, in fact, it's that you align to it correctly. And forever, the moon has captured our imagination. The ebb and flow of the tides, the cycles of biology, the patterns of cellular life, it's all deeply affected by the magnetic field of the moon, the attractor field. It is actually responsible for the dark side, the moon. It has 2 faces, that of illusion and that of purity. Swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb, lest thy love prove likewise variable. So Juliet implored Romeo, and she knew perhaps how prophetic Romeo's declaration of love would be once it was associated with the moon. Because essentially, the relationship between the earth and the moon creates a maya, a field of illusion, what the ancients called samsara, the karmic cycles of incarnation. So karma is deeply connected to the moon, and by karma I mean the repetitive cycles that humans keep attracting towards themselves. You see, the sphere of attraction, it's about what energies you attract into your life, into your aura. And if you succumb to the lower nature, your dark side, your desire, your astral body, then you will continue to attract those same forces and events and experiences and relationships into your life. Desire leads to suffering. This is what the great teachers of humanity have always said. What are we supposed to do with that piece of information? I always wondered that. We can't help our desires. No, we can't. We can't suppress our true nature. It doesn't work. It leads to chaos, illness. But we can transmute our desires. We can shift our perspective and see them for what they truly are. All desires, no matter how base, are aspects of our consciousness wanting to return to unity. So the desire may be totally warped, but at its core is a pure desire to awaken. Every desire has this tiny quintessence at its core. And this is why relationships are so hard. The Venus sequence, you may remember, or you may realize, or you may know, that's all about the transformation of desire into love through relationships. It's a tantric system. And they're difficult because they constantly mirror back our desires, our unhappiness, our suffering. But that also means that our relationships offer us vast opportunities. You can use them to transform your desires and your dissatisfaction into its higher potential. That's what we do with the Jinkies. This is what the Venus sequence teaches us, that we attract precisely the relationships we need in life that offer us the greatest chance to transcend our nature. And I know that sounds nice and easy, and I never said it was easy, but it is true. The most challenging relationships in your life are the ones where the karma is at its thickest. So it also has the greatest jewels hidden in it, that relationship, if you have the courage to look them in the face. So your attractor field is really about the healing of your relationships. It is your cosmic mirror. And if you never clean the mirror, it will always reflect an unpleasant image of others. And you will always remain miserable, always trying to escape them, always locked into patterns of low self-esteem and self-abuse and all that stuff. And it's not up to your partner to clean your mirror, it's up to you. It's about how you see others. If you only see their shadows, if you only see through your shadows, then you will help others stay in their shadows. Whereas if you polish your mirror, then you will see all of them. You'll see their shadow, and you'll see their higher aspects, their cities, their gifts. And you will learn to love the whole of someone, and that will transform the karmic patterns of the chemistry between you. These are the gene keys. We should remember that. They're about changing genetic, chemical pathways, neural pathways, hormonal pathways. They create real and lasting change. But you must do the work of the Venus sequence. It's the deepest work you will ever encounter. That I promise you. I have never come across anything so powerful. Almost all relationships come with karmic ties, hooks in the subtle bodies between us that create codependent patterns. So how the hell do you change the frequency of your attractor field? That's a question. How do you polish this mirror? And what happens when you do that? Does it mean you suddenly attract the love of your life? Well, yes, I guess it does. Yes and no. Kind of. Many miracles can occur when you purify your desire nature, because the outer reflects the inner. But before we go there, let's discuss how you do it. How do you purify your desire? And what does this have to do with sexuality? Because the attraction sphere has all to do with sexuality. It's the source of sexuality and creative power. And they're one and the same thing. And there are so many teachings out there that talk about sublimating sexual power, Tantra, Kundalini, all these things. But you know, I think that Tantra is the most misunderstood of all the spiritual terms. To me, true Tantra is a deeply private phenomenon that occurs inside you. To begin with, it has absolutely nothing to do with others. It describes the natural process of seeing each of your desires as one desire. The desire to return to the source, the desire to be one, the desire for transcendence, the desire for the light. So everything you yearn for, you're really yearning for the light. And this understanding has to percolate so deep inside you that your outer behavior actually begins to change. Your addiction to trying to find fulfillment externally is gradually eroded by this sweeping awareness. And this is how we transform our karma. Karma exists as layer upon layer of ancestral memory stored in the area below the diaphragm. It's all here in the solar plexus, in the belly, the lower belly, the sexual organs, the base. This is the dark side of our moon. And there are many ways of transforming this energy. But the best and the safest is through self-compassion, through self-awareness, and through loving this area of your body more and more. So whatever your spiritual path, let this area become the center of your attention. If you're a dancer, dance from here. Let the shadow express itself from here. Let it be transformed through that expression. If you're an artist, paint from here. If you're a musician, play from here. If you meditate, bring your awareness here into the belly over and over, and just breathe into the numbness. Just hold it, cradle it in gentleness, as a mother might hold her baby. It takes time. It will be the most courageous thing you have ever done. You will try and find a million ways of getting out of it. I guarantee you will. No one wants to dwell on the dark side of the moon. But I say, persevere. Don't get all tense about it either. Don't overdo it. If you find yourself getting tense and frustrated, stop. Do something else. Be normal for a bit. Come back later. Gentleness is the key. Find the spark of purity inside every desire and nurture that spark. And if you follow the desire out into the world, it's okay, so long as it doesn't harm anyone. Just keep watching for it. How great is your longing for the cities, for the higher states? So look at the gene key of your attractor field in this sphere and contemplate that city, whatever the word is, and contemplate it over and over and over again until you get it. What is it? Is it the 60th city? Divine justice. Learn to see the truth of justice, if it is. Justice as the basis of the compassionate universe. Feel the beauty of that. Rest in the truth of that. See it at work in the world. The more work you put in, the more you'll be rewarded. That's justice. But it takes time. You have to keep returning. The karma is thick. And personal karma is mingled in with collective karma. So you don't need to understand what you're working on. You just have to feel the process. I mean, the wound is the wound. It's alchemical. And ask for help if you need. Ask for help on the social plane if you need that. Or ask for help from the higher planes. Pray to the higher forces if that is your way. Invoke them. Call them in over and over. It doesn't matter what style you take, what your beliefs are. The work is the same for each of us. We just have to do it. It's why all those guys were out praying in the Middle Ages. You know, it's why people became saints and had lights and halos around them. They found a way to do it. Not all of them, just some. And you don't have to give anything up. You don't have to give up cake or sex or TV. That's a dangerous path. If your awareness prompts you to give something up, that's okay. Then follow it. But don't impose it from the outside. Let yourself change from the inside out, almost imperceptibly. But there will be breakthroughs if you persist. I don't recommend you overly focus on the shadows in the Jinkies. You know, I don't. Just hold them in your awareness. I said last time somewhere, I think it was, 10% in the shadow, 90% on the gift and the city. That's a healthy balance. Otherwise, what we humans do is we start to wallow. Oh, we love to wallow in the shadow. 10% is all you're allowed. Okay? That's how you do it. Look for purity inside yourself. Court purity of heart. This is the process of purifying your emotions, your astral nature. Your astral body is your mirror. If you want to know what the astral body is, by the way, I'd like to refer you to the very excellent glossary in the back of my book, which describes the astral plane and the astral body. It's very interesting. Well, the clearer your astral body becomes, that's your desire nature, the more its highest counterpart, it's called the Buddhic body, you can look that one up as well, the more the Buddhic body begins to shine through it. And this is the process long known as samadhi. Samadhi is an Indian term. It means many things, but it's the process of the heart opening inside ourselves and insight. Deep heart insight. You begin to feel your heart opening, stretching, exploding even. And as it does, your mind quietens. As the karma becomes subtler, you start working and sifting through it. And then your attractor field begins to shift and change. But you know, the funny thing is that what happens externally, it almost is insignificant. Because as you come into the purity of your higher nature, in this attractor field, you care less about what happens externally. For one thing, you begin to behave yourself in your relationships. And by behave, I mean you learn how to return non-love with love. You break the codependent patterns, and your relationships transform. You will find true love, but it'll be inside yourself. And very likely it will also be externalized. You'll either find it in someone you already love, you're already with them, or maybe someone new will arrive. Who knows? The mystery and the magic of the attractor field. So this is why I say in the Venus sequence repeatedly, stay in your relationships if you can. If it's unbearable at times, that's a good sign. You have a great opportunity to transform yourself. And don't worry about the other. They're not your business. If you change, they must change, or they must leave. And they will do one or the other. You just make everything about you. And you don't have to process it in front of them either. Sometimes that may be okay, you'll know. But it's not their responsibility, it's yours. So take it inside, see the karma for what it is, and offer yourself up as the cauldron for its transformation. Let your body, let your belly transform it, whatever it is. It's shared. It doesn't come from them. It's in the field. It comes from the moon. I love the moon. So let your love be that great. So you see, the attractive field is not what we think. It's not about sending out a message that we want a Ferrari or lots of money or any of that stuff. That's the astral nature staying the astral nature. Those things will never bring you freedom. That's not to say that you won't get them after your transformation. Who knows what's in store for you? But when you look into part 3 of the Golden Path, the Pearl, you'll see what's coming to you. But that's another story for another time. Now, what about these lines? Anton, you can put up the lines, if you could, on the screen. I've got some new keynotes to share. And I know that some of you have had difficulties relating to some of these line keynotes in the profile, in your profile. And one thing to be aware of is that you need quite an accurate birth time to get your attractor field right, the line that is. So this is really the only place in the profile where this occurs. You've got to be quite accurate. So look at the lines each side of your line if it doesn't feel right. So if you're a second line, look at the third line and the first line and consider your timing might be slightly wrong. And intuition here is more important than logic. If you're, for instance, having problems, you know, I had a lady who said recently that she had the third line, which is promiscuity. And she said, but I'm not like that. I'm not promiscuous. You know, I said, well, try and look at it from the other way around. What have you attracted, you know, to your life? Have your men been promiscuous? If so, maybe that's where the pattern is. It may be in them, but you're on the receiving end. And you may blame them, but you were the one that attracted them in. You said yes. Let that be your teaching. So try and turn them round at times. It's, of course, it's also your partner's issue, but the first teaching is for you because you have attracted this teaching into your life. You have to find the forgiveness, the understanding, whatever it is. You have to find the appropriate balanced action. You have to find the self-compassion to transcend the pattern. Otherwise, it will simply return in someone else. So rather than go through the 6 keynotes in your profile, which I've already done in the Venus Sequence program at length, here are 6 new ones, a little gift. And I think they're very beautiful. And these came to me at the same time as I wrote the Venus Sequence down. But I never used them. And I wondered why I wasn't using them. And now I know, because here they are, in the perfect timing. And they're keys in your relationships, because they celebrate the difference between us, and they offer a lot of insight. And I call them the 6 lines of appreciation. And they're designed to go with this moon sphere, this sphere of attraction. And I've found them very useful in my relationships. I won't over-explain them to you, but I'm going to leave them with you as a gift for your contemplation. So here they are, the 6 lines of appreciation. And you can look into your sphere of attraction in your profile. If you haven't got a profile, go to the website, get a free profile. Jinkies.com. I'm sure most of you have. And look into the sphere of attraction and look at the number and then the dot and then the number after the dot. And the number after the dot is the number we're talking about. It's one of 6 lines. So line 1 people are seeking silence. They're seeking silence inside, deeply. And in relationships, they communicate through silence and through being. It doesn't mean they never talk, but they communicate through being. So for them, it's all about presence. It's about just being in the aura. It's enough. So their silence is golden. And then look at line 2. You see the difference. Line 2 is about activity. It's about doing. These are the doers. They communicate through action. So think about, if you know what your partner is and you know what you are, think about that. It doesn't matter if you don't. This is a gift anyway, just to show how you can appreciate someone as different. You don't have to know these lines, but it just gives an example. So the second line, they communicate through action. So for instance, I'm line 1 and my wife is line 2. So she always wants me to be like her, and I always want her to be like me. Why don't you just sit down, I say. Why don't you just do something, she says. It's our life, and it defines it. But once you come to appreciate it, then you come to understand it, and it's no longer attention. The third line, journeys. These people love to go out. They're all about learning, movement, change. They like to live in different places. They like to know different people, different experiences. So for them, relationships are always about learning. Isn't that amazing? I'm going to keep going. Line 4, dialogue. These people need to talk, to share, to dialogue. So think about this. This is your attractor field. You have a line 2 and you draw in a line 4 or a line 5 or a line 3. You're drawn in a kind of interesting. You've drawn in someone completely different, or maybe someone the same. I like the fourth line. Imagine line 1 with line 4. One likes to talk, the other likes silence. What are you going to do? But when you accept each other, it's fine. One shares through being, through listening, the other through talking, mostly. They can deeply enjoy each other. All these lines and combinations can enjoy each other. There's no good, there's no bad, there's just appreciation of each other. Line 5, achievement, building. These are the builders. Well, with line 2, activity. These people are driven to achieve, to attain, to complete things. They're here to build something, to organize something, to talk about their goals, whether they're material or spiritual. It doesn't matter. Just appreciate them for what they are. And line 6, mission. These are people, they're more than achievers. Their relationships are a mission. They're the seers. They're the role models for a new way of looking at relationships altogether. They may be revolutionary in that way. So when you look at which line has attracted which line in your life, you'll see the pattern of that relationship. A line 6 with a line 1 will be one spiritual revolutionary and one contemplative. That can work. Why not? Any combination can work. But they can also undermine each other at the shadow level. Or they can be really beautiful. I call them appreciation lines. So look at who you've attracted. And if you're currently single, look at your line and know you're a line 4, then don't repress how you feel. Share it. If you're a line 3, then be advanced. And don't worry about the differences in your relationships. They can be wonderful. And equally, you may have the same line, like one of those couples you occasionally see, 2 peas in the same pod. We envy them. But we don't need to, because ours can be just as beautiful. Just appreciation, that's the key. So the lines, there they are. So let's summarize the core teaching that we've received here today. We've begun with 3 wishes, and your 3 wishes have to be selfless, not selfish. Otherwise, it comes from the astral low-frequency realm, which never reaches the field of grace, doesn't touch it. Low-frequency desire just propagates more desire. So you don't ask for yourself alone, you ask for the whole, which includes yourself and others. And at the highest level, you don't need to ask at all. Your field, just let go and trust. So let your asking for higher consciousness swallow up all your other desires. Not that you'll become stale and chaste and desireless. You follow into the world, let it be tainted with love, and then it stirs the currents of your attractive field to magnetize great fortune into your life. This stuff really works, you know. In summary, it's simple. In sex without love, the energy goes down. But with love, it rises up and up and up. So we have to wait until the conditions are right. You have to be very patient, especially men. Men, we have to be especially patient, because the conditions for that kind of experience actually come about quite rarely. The moon has to be in the right place, you know. The mood has to be clear and open. It can't be staged or faked. And how do you know when it's right? Look in the eyes. Listen to the tone. There has to be warmth. There has to be vulnerability. There has to be connection. And that kind of connection attracts very powerful forces from the Buddhic plane, the higher planes. Very powerful. And they can change your life. That's real Tantra. So I hope you've enjoyed this transmission. It's a very powerful one. And I recommend that you listen to it again, because there's been a lot in it. And just to let its truths percolate gently inside you. And let the transformation come down into your belly. We're going to open up some questions now. And just while they're coming out, those questions, I also want to wholeheartedly recommend that you do the Venus sequence. And I recommend that you do all of the Golden Path. And when you come to the Venus sequence, you'll recognize what I've been saying here today. You'll really know it. And you'll understand some of the deeper veins of this transmission, because I know it's been a lot. But this transmission goes right to the heart of the Venus work, which is about transforming our relationships into their highest form and opening our heart fully and permanently to all life. And I'd like to just finish the transmission piece with a little prophecy, naughty man that I am. It's an unusual one. One day, our moon will turn blue. Sounds rather surreal, I know. It's true. Our moon is very slowly moving away from the Earth. But there's going to come a time, this is my prophecy, that soon, when the moon is going to be shunted away from the Earth. And then everything is going to change. The geometry here will change. And because of its distance from us, the moon, it's going to appear as blue. But more importantly, without the moon's gravitational field, the karmic magnetism, the veil of samsara, it's going to be lifted completely. And the moon will finally be free. It's trapped by the Earth. It can't spin. And it will rotate on its own axis, and life will become possible there one day. You see, life cannot happen without spin. And then, of course, the Earth will begin a new geometry balanced by other forces, and our final epoch will begin. So it's always nice to end with a little bit of a fairy tale. This kind of thing only happens once in a blue moon. So, questions? Anton, if you want to come in and join me in some questions.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, it's nice to have another voice after all that.
Okay, let's look at some questions. So far we're getting
Okay.
specific questions.
I just saw one.
Go on then.
When I've lost it now, but it was about when we find someone destructive or a destructive pattern, do we stay anyway in the relationship? Great question. Actually, I answered that very fully in the Venus sequence work because it is such a core question. Depends what you mean by destructive. All shadow patterns are destructive. Abusive is one thing. You know, if it's physically abusive, then that is a relationship to leave or to get professional help with. If it is emotionally destructive, you know, it is a normal relationship. So those are the ones that we need to kind of work in. Now, of course, some of them we just find too hard, but I urge people to really go the distance and really do this Venus work. And if you go into the Venus sequence, you will see the specific patterns of your triggering of your wound. And that relationship, it's not destructive in the sense that it's not you or the other person. It's the field that I've been talking about. And if you leave that relationship, that field will simply return in another form. And that form won't be any better and it won't be any worse. But it'll be the same field. And it will have destructive tendencies. It may not have them initially, but they will appear because that's the nature. So I'm not saying don't ever leave a difficult relationship. I wouldn't say that. I am saying look at the Venus sequence, look at your sequence, understand it, take your awareness into it, and it will guide you through those stages. It's very powerful that way. Okay.
Okay, question from Teresa. Does the freeing of the moon have to do with the freeing of the feminine divine energy?
Absolutely. How could it not? I mean, that's what the moon represents to us, isn't it? The feminine divine energy. But that is not, you know, that can be easily mistaken as women. I know that most of us wouldn't make that mistake, but the feminine divine energy is the Buddhic plane that I was talking about. It's the field of love that wants to come through that lower astral body. So as we polish that mirror, as we do that work, that purification, then that higher feminine essence can shine through. And that's, yeah, that is exactly what it is. But you know, it's not like we don't think that we are going to, I'll just sit here and wait for the moon to go away. It's only moving at the distance of like an inch a year, so and there will come a point, I reckon, my prophetic side, when it will shift. But it rather depends on us. That's another story. It depends on us, on the amount of breakthroughs that occur in relationships on this planet. Someone asked also, it's very hard when it feels like only one person is doing all the deep work, which absolutely, I can empathize with that for many people. And the truth is that it only takes one person to transform a relationship. So if if you're with someone and you're doing all the work, or you feel like you're on the right track. You just need to persevere. You need to persevere until you have the shift inside you. And then when that shift fully occurs inside you, then it will occur inside the other person, one way or another. It either, as I said, it either has to occur inside them, or they won't be able to stay, and the attractor field will release them. And that's just what's going to happen. So we have to do the work. I mean, sometimes we get so dug into the work that it's, we need encouragement, so, and we need support sometimes from outside. That's really true, especially with the Venus sequence work. It requires encouragement and support from people who understand what you're doing. And so I really encourage people to do the Venus sequence with people they know and love and trust. And it can be outside your relationship that you have that support. It's quite healthy often if it is. Got any more good ones, Anton? You've probably been sifting them.
There's one here from Maureen. When one really sees a specific triggered wound pattern blatantly revealing in oneself, what is the next step you suggest? And when we see it revealed in another, do you suggest we just quietly send love?
That's very good. I think that's absolutely, that second part is absolutely correct. Quietly send love. Quietly hold them at their highest frequency, as you would want them to hold you if they saw your pattern. And the next step, well, I mean, seeing your pattern is the vital step. And then seeing it again is the next step. And then again, the next step. And over and over and over again until something occurs inside you. Until you catch the pattern early enough and you just go, you know, I'm not going to go down that road this time. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to be triggered by that. And it's not that you actually make that conscious decision. It just doesn't occur because you've broken the pattern, because the awareness has got in deep enough. And this is what our relationships, you know, it's so juicy, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing juicier. There is no quicker path to higher consciousness than relationships, but there has been very little teaching about this. You know, really. I mean, there are people out there, but many of the awakened teachers are not in relationships themselves. Some of them are, but many of them aren't, and many of them haven't awoken through relationships. So you've got to go through it to really know the terrain. And that's what we're doing. That's what this community is doing. That's what anyone that participates in the Venus sequence and the Golden Path is doing. They're beginning that process of letting their relationships be the most rapid spiritual path that there is.
There's a question from Olaf, and he's asking this, it's come through the Jinkies Facebook group. Is there a male wound?
Thanks, Olaf. Is there a male wound? I'm sure there is. I'm sure there must be. But, you know, I can't put my finger on it right now. You know, essentially, it's neither male nor female. It just, you know, it comes through the male or the female mechanism differently. That's all. So it comes through a different set of social kind of values and beliefs, but that's secondary to the actual core itself. So in other words, if you go into your belly and you contact the wound and you feel it there and you resonate with it and you send awareness and mindfulness in there, you're contacting beyond gender, through the gender. And yes, it will manifest in different ways as it splits into male and female. And I think there's enough information out there about that already by other teachers and psychologists, you know, and social you know, scientists. It's quite clear what the male and the female wounds are. I don't know if there's a particularly one. I haven't thought about it. Probably if you really contemplate it. Now you've put that in my head, I'll bloody well have to go and do it in one of my meditations and see if there is. But I would recommend you ask yourself the same question. You know, you're a man, Olaf. Put it to the men in your group and put it to the women in your group and see what comes out of that. It would be interesting. I'd like to know.
A question from Teresa. Are there certain lines and gates that indicate that we shouldn't even bother with personal, intimate sexual relationships?
I do love these questions. Ah, you wish. No is the answer. No, we can't. We can't escape. How are you going to escape? I mean, unless you're one of those very unusual people that wants to go and be an ascetic, and there aren't very many of those these days. But it's possible that you are one. I suspect you wouldn't be here now. I suspect you'd be off in a hermitage somewhere anyway, because you would have that deep inner resolve that would take you to do that. Otherwise, the path of relationships and sexuality and sexual transformation is, as I said, it is the fastest route that there is. There are certain laws that we need to adhere to. Again, I've put these in the Venus sequence, like the law of courtesy, to remember to be courteous always to your partner, even when you're in the midst of a difficult set of emotions. You can still retain a degree of courtesy, so that you don't, throw the physical object at them. You just, vent near them. And I'm not suggesting that we are, by the way, venting with each other. Is a much softer, gentler interior process, but it really does take us on this journey into our own private wounding, and any relationship will reflect that. Your mother, your father, your child, your brother, your sister, your best friend, your enemy, they all, pick any one, they will all reflect something about yourself. Discomfort, that's where you look, that's where you go. Wherever there's discomfort, go there.
Richard, someone's asked what your line number is.
My line number, line one. Line one. I did say that. I said, I'm ironically the silence guy. But also it's, the line ones are very seeking this experience of wholesome, the wholesomeness of, the city and the shadow, the whole of a being, the whole of a person. And line ones can also be very, very repressive, because it's the most repressive of the 6 lines. So yeah, I'm line one. Line one in the 35. So you see, my attractor field is about boundlessness, and the more I awaken, the more boundless my life becomes. The more boundless possibilities open up to me, the boundlessness of the cities, of the universe. This is why I talk about the magical universe, because that's who I am. I am an exponent of a wizard of the kind of magical ways, the possibilities. Anything is possible. That's the 35th city. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. I'd like to do a course on that one day, maybe. You never know.
Deepali asks, are we looking at relationships as a way to move through this journey of samsara, to uncover all the wounds we bring to this journey of life?
Yes. That's what relationships, that's the potential of relationships. That is that is in a way the new teaching. You see, first of all, we have to awaken individually. And the quickest way is through a relationship. And the way that our society has us formed is in relationships. And obviously, because of the social pressures and etc., children, families, whether you have them or not, there are huge social pressures on all relationships. And but the wound patterns are the same as they've always been. So, as an interior way of awakening, and then the relationship awakens, or the relationship splits. But what's left is you awakened, and the potential of another relationship, or it's your relationship itself that opens up. The potential that's coming is the potential of two enlightenments, which is really one enlightenment. So a simultaneous realization between two people. That's the shift to the next level of consciousness. It first of all has to take place through relationships before it can become collective and spread through the gene pool. Then it moves out into the family, and then into the community, and into the ancestral lines, and in through the genetic lines, and so on into the whole of humanity. That's how this coming awakening is going to spread.
Michelle asks, what if you relate to most of the lines and not just one specifically?
Well, that would be very natural. I relate to all the lines, and I would take each of those lines as a teaching. And this is really why in the Golden Path program I laid out all the lines through all the spheres, because they each contain teachings, and because they're around us everywhere. So I may be a line 1, but some of my friends might be a line 4 or a line 2, or my son might be a line 6, and it's in the field all the time. So we get to see it being played out. So actually, you're quite right. We do resonate to all of them. Our own particular one is a place to really put your contemplation intensely. But that doesn't negate contemplating all the others and using your awareness to see them at work. I encourage that in the Venus sequence as well, because as you see the lines, especially the wound patterns of the lines in the world around you, both personally and collectively, like on the news, for example, you see all these dramas played out in the world stage, it actually opens up your heart because you see the damn themes being played out and you just go, oh my God, it's everywhere. And it enables you to be much more compassionate rather than blaming and, oh, that awful man or that terrible tyrant. You just see, oh, it's that pattern again. And actually, I have that pattern at a kind of local level as well. I'm just not playing on the world stage. Yeah, so.
This is from Jason. Can you explain the phenomenon of jealousy, specifically in romantic or sexually tense relationships, as it relates to the attractor field?
That's a good one. Jealousy. So jealousy is, I've got this one, but I want that one. Or it's, I got this one, but he wants that one, or she wants that one. It is a leaving of our own center. It's one of those hooks I mentioned earlier. It's one of the hooks that we sometimes have in relationships, and it also may be a what's the word? It's a warning. It's a warning. It's a kind of meter that registers, yes, something's off here, and it opens the potential of a dialogue, and it can open the potential of a very uncomfortable dialogue. But you have to look very deeply inside yourself and go into the truth of why it is that one person, why you feel jealous. If it's you that feels jealous, why do you feel jealous? Or if it's your husband or wife or partner that feels jealous, why do they feel jealous? Because you can be damn sure that they're jealous for a reason, because there's some boundary that has been overstepped, and that boundary may be an emotional boundary, and an astral boundary, in other words, because someone else's desire is moving towards someone else. And that's natural and fine because that happens, but it's how far do we follow that into the world, because if we follow that and we have this one over here, it creates problems, unless that is addressed. So again, in the Venus sequence, I address these questions. The question of having emotional affairs, that when someone has an emotional affair with someone else, and many people think that that is a normal thing. Yes, if I'm in love with one person here, I'm married to this person, but that doesn't mean I can't have a wonderful relationship with this person here. And there's nothing to, why? What's wrong with that? I haven't done anything physical. But actually, an emotional affair can be very damaging, and you can overstep your boundary. There's a rule, really. It's not a rule. There's a law of balance in relationships, which is, if you truly love someone and you're devoted to them, then would they be okay with this right now? Very uncomfortable thing to ask yourself sometimes. Would they be okay with this right now? So that's a good one to contemplate. Again, if you go into the Venus sequence and start working through that material, there are more insights in that direction. These are obviously deep and tangled, incredible questions, and this realm is extraordinary. And so I'm not going to be able to kind of go as deep into it here as I'd like. So I can just give little pointers and encourage all these questions to go into the Venus sequence and find the roots, and go on that journey.
So Maria's asking, she refers to a question someone asked about expressing anger, and she says, I'm thinking if someone transgresses a boundary, like a physical or energetic or other, so what about expressing emotions, particularly those categorized as negative or shadow, when they too are part of the human experience and design?
Yeah, it's a very good question. They are, and people have different ways of processing emotions. What I can say is, from my own experience, is the deeper you go into your core wounding, the less you wish to express negative emotions, because you see the damage that they cause, and you see firsthand how they replicate the very conditions that you're trying to escape from, free yourself from. And so as the awareness deepens, it becomes less, it's not really, you don't want to. You may feel it, but your awareness will catch it earlier. In the beginning, that's not the case, and you can't help it. But in the beginning is the hardest, because the awareness is so small and the pattern is so large, and how are you going to cope with all that emotion, and it's a pattern that you've been, if it's anger, it's a pattern that's just taken over you for so long. How are you possibly, you might wonder, how am I possibly going to get to grips with this? And the answer is, it's inside your belly. It's down in there. It's a pattern. It's thick. You're going to have to start working at it inside yourself. And each of us will find our own way to do that. You can get help. You can get guidance. There's all kinds of stuff out there. I mean, there are people that really can help with those things, with awareness. But that's my experience, is that at a certain point, you almost don't want to disturb the other person, because your love for them and your love for yourself starts to take over, and your love would not want to lay this on them. Why would you want to lay that anger on someone else that you love? You wouldn't. But in the beginning, it's uncontrollable. You don't know what to do. So I understand. And I would say, if it is uncontrollable to anyone, then you can get help, professional help, to deal with uncontrollable emotional situations. Mindfulness and is a great way of dealing with it. There are many, many ways, but once you've got a handle on it a little bit, then your journey really begins, because then it gets, your communication with the other becomes refined and refined, and your love comes more and more into the equation.
This is a question from Mark. I don't know if this is meant to be funny, but I thought it made me laugh anyway.
A lot of these are funny.
He says, in the ebb and flow between unity and separation, is there really more than one of us in here? It's fun to pretend. Don't wake me up too fast, please.
Say that again.
He says, in the ebb and flow between unity and separation, is there really more than one of us here? It's fun to pretend. Don't wake me up too fast.
Sounds like something I might have said. Yes, I don't. I think that is like a haiku, and I don't think it requires a response. But thank you for it. I saw one about celibacy. Someone asked just now. Someone who's a bit older. I'm not sure whether the question was about enforced celibacy or what, but you know, I don't have an opinion about enforced celibacy. Although I would suspect it. I would suspect that it were a self-imposed thing. But what happens as the transmutation occurs inside us, that definitely our desire shifts. Our desire towards the other shifts. It's not that it becomes less. In fact, in some way it becomes more intensified, but it intensified through the heart. So it doesn't require the same kind of raw urge, you know, that it used to, because it's moving upwards. And so ultimately, yes, we are moving more towards that state, but not as an imposition from the outside, but as an impulse from within. But I don't mean that to kind of sound like this is going to stop you having great sex, because I don't mean that at all. That may be an integral part of your journey. Let's hope it is, if that's what you're really longing for. I think as you get older, obviously the libido changes, the energy changes, and there's in many people there's a tailing off of the sexual urges, and that's natural, and can be, I think, quite beautiful, and needs to be worked into and accepted, and just like anything else, any other rhythm of the body, yes, to be enjoyed.
Teresa asks, will the freeing of the moon correct the offset of the geometry relating to the 88-degree factor?
Teresa likes this idea of the freeing of the moon. I don't really know. Yes, I would say yes, because that would be the fairy tale ending. That you know, there is a shift in the geometry of life, and the axis gets corrected and reset and recalibrated to its highest original potential. But having gone through the whole journey, you know, back to Eden, the Eden at the end is very different from the Eden at the beginning, even though they're intricately linked. You know, because the Eden at the end is, you know, it's fully realized and fully awakened, as opposed to purely innocent and unmanifest.
Okay. Are relationships always a reflection of our own shadows, which we're not willing to look at?
Are relationships always a reflection of our own shadows? Well, generally, relationships do bring up these shadows, yes, that we are unwilling to look at. There may be some relationships that have been worked through extensively, where that debris field has been cleared. Some of us may have met people like that. Older couples, for example, who've really done a lot of work and have a clarity about them. Generally, most relationships have this, intense well, they just create these interference patterns because they come up so quickly. So yes, they are. They do manifest our shadows. That's what I've been saying. Are you in the Garden of Eden now? Not yet. And yes. So, should we have a couple more questions?
Okay. This is more of a line number one.
Okay.
From Victoria. I'm a 25 gene key line 2 attraction. Can you give me an example of how I can best contemplate the second line of appreciation in my life, activity doing, plus the previous keynotes, lust and passion?
What was the gene key again?
25th.
Oh, yeah. Which is constriction, the shadow. So for you, lust is constrictive. There's no judgment on that, but it is a constrictive force. And acceptance is the pathway of the 25th gene key. So whatever happens in your relationships, whoever you draw in, those will be the patterns, regardless of the lines. Those will be the patterns that you're going to come across. You're going to have to deal with constriction inside yourself, and often that has to do with tension in the body that prevents us from breathing correctly. So it's just to look at that. Just look at how you breathe in emotional situations, and look at that breath, and just listen to that breath, and find ways to open up that breath before you speak, before you act. You see, you have the second line, which is activity. And so it can just go straight into activity. I've got to do something. I've got to do something. I've got to do something. I've got to change. I've got to do something. And it's good to have a pause and just be, before you rush out and start trying to do something about it, just feel into it. Acceptance is going to be the path. Universal love is your siddhi. So that's something really to take very, very deeply into your life. And passion is the other keynote of the second line. Passion is a beautiful thing. Passion can be expressed as creativity, as many things. It's part of your activity. That we talked about. Your activity is passionate rather than a reaction to the constriction you feel. That's a healthy way for you. So you need to look at those patterns whenever you feel the constriction. And you need to sort of look at the issue of lust. And lust doesn't have to just be sexual either. Lust is just pure, hard, raw desire without any emotion in it. It can be pure hunger for some food, and it might not even be yours. It might be someone else you've attracted, and you can see it just in the field, and it's around, and it makes you feel that constriction. And so these are all areas and issues for you to go into in your process of contemplation, and really spot them and work with them, and use that universal love. That is the key for you. Use that field of love. If you have a 25th gene key there and you have passion there, you're going to need to really draw in that love, because that's inside you. That's who you are. And that's something you can attract towards yourself. but you have to kind of put it out there. You have to, 90% of your contemplation has to be on that, 10% on the shadow patterns. Remember that. One more question.
Okay, this is from Jason. Does the increase of people practicing polygamy reflect a change in the collective human attractor field and the sexual transcendence of humanity?
You really picked them, Anton. Not necessarily, I would say. I think the increase in polygamy may be more of a social issue than a spiritual one. Yeah, I think I understand what you're driving at. You know, I do understand that. However, as I explained, you know, the shift, the transcendent shift, this is how I see it. The transcendent shift that's coming to collective consciousness will come, first of all, through individuals who awaken as couples, in a couple. And a couple is something that is a very powerful field. And a couple has a closed energy field. You know, in order for the tantra to occur, in order for the transcendence to occur, there can't be leakages. So from that point of view, the deepest shifts are going to come from monogamous couples. Now, I know that's an evil word for many people, and perhaps there is a third word that hasn't yet been coined that involves the, you know, a transcendent view. I don't know what that would be. Synogamous or something. It's got to have a sin at the front so that it includes all possibilities. But essentially, it's in the culture of dual cultivation, you know, between two forces, and the devotion that lies between the yin and the yang. You know, the devotion that's there has to be realized fully. You know, the force of yin and the force of yang are both polar, but you know, this is polar opposite, you know, but they both attract and they repel. You know, they repel at the wound level, but they attract at the siddhi level. And so there's this incredible magnetism. So when you break the magnetism, you know, the shadow, then they suddenly come together, because the siddhi is what brings them together. It's what's trying to bring them together. And the yin and the yang pole can be, you know, in the same sex. It can be, you know, it's just a yin and yang pole. The most likely is it's going to be a male and female, because then the genetic chemistry is also there. But it doesn't have to be. You know, love is love. And so, yeah, I would say that the real shift is coming that way first. And then, you know, all things are possible. But it has to come through that honoring of the other. Okay. Thank you for all your questions. Sorry, those of you whose questions weren't answered. You know what I'm going to say? They can be answered by the Golden Path program. It's true, especially through the Venus sequence. So what I usually do now is I do a short self-illumination part where I talk about, I just synthesize the practical aspect of what we've been talking about. And I have repeatedly referred to the belly, and I want to keep bringing the focus of this teaching to the area below the diaphragm, because that's where we have to bring the light. That's where we have to bring our mindfulness, our consciousness, our awareness. And as I said earlier, it's a very difficult place to have for us to have a clean relationship with. It's the moment you begin, you put your hand there, you take your awareness in there. You might do it for 5 minutes. Try doing it for an hour. You'll be amazed what thoughts come across your mind and how desperate you want to get out of there you are. So take it gently to begin with. And also I'd say take the sphere, the gene key of the sphere of attraction, and feel into that city. Feel deeply into that city and feel the shadow and feel like the uncarved block of your shadow with the city inside it. One of my hobbies is making wooden spoons. I'm an old whittler. I love to whittle. It's a very contemplative thing to do. And one of the things you start with a log, a block, the uncarved block, and inside there is some kind of beautiful spoon or ladle. And the other day in my meditation, I suddenly saw this relationship, and I realized that every breath of my awareness going down into my core, down into the core of my belly, into that one point, into that dantian, into that amazing navel central point of our being. Every breath that goes into there with mindfulness is like an axe stroke on the block of wood. So you slam this block of wood with the axe, and you start shaving off, and you shave off, and you shave off, and you turn the wood, and then you shave it again, and you keep taking off, and you have to stop and look at it and make sure you haven't taken off too much, and then balance it out, and then eventually you move to the finer equipment, the knives and things after you've finished with the axe. So every stroke, every breath that enters in there is taking a small part of that karma off. It's taking a small part of the shadow. It's shaving it off. But you have to have a sharp blade. The sharp blade is you have to be alert, and you have to have a really awakened sense. So it's not something to do when you're sleepy, or if you start nodding off, then just take a break. So this is a meditation to do when you're alert, the uncarved block. Let the breath go into the center and out, and into the center, and chip away at the block, chip away at the karma. It's the mindfulness and the compassion that has to go with the breath, and it goes in and it goes out, and over time, something will begin to emerge in there, and eventually the city will begin to emerge in there. So I think the teaching's fairly simple in terms of practical. It's continuation of my love of the belly, of the solar plexus, of this place where we have to bring our attention and our awareness in order for a transmutation to take place. And I want to finish with a small quintessence piece. So maybe now just close your eyes and take a breath, and this is the piece that we'll just close with and say goodbye with. It's a nice thing to begin with gratitude. To be grateful to yourself, to be grateful to your attractor field, to have brought you to this wisdom. Because the Jinkies are a living wisdom for our time. And this is a wisdom for those who are ready. It is quite a refined wisdom. And it requires that you be self-disciplined. It isn't really for beginners, in terms of beginners on the path. It requires that you have an imagination and a creative spirit, and that you find your own techniques in addition to the ones that I give, because each person has to find their own techniques. But the essentials are the same, the essentials that I've been outlining. Recently I was in a very beautiful part of England, Derbyshire, and I went on a walk, and I was looking up into the hills, the moors, and I was on this footpath, and I wanted desperately to get off the footpath and up into the wilderness and the moors, and there were all these gates and walls and things, and I wasn't sure whether I was permitted to cross a wall and go across a farmer's land, or I'd get into trouble. So I followed the path. And after about 20 minutes, I came to a sign, and it was the most wonderful sign I've ever seen. It said, "Path to open countryside." And I thought, what a great sign. That is the exact sign I am looking for. I want to be in the open countryside. I don't want to follow any paths. And the Jinkies are like that. You know, they're a sign, they're a path to the open countryside. This is an open countryside wisdom. And the moment you hit that place where the path ends, you're off into the wilderness. And it can't be, you know, in the wilderness, it's not done for you by someone. It's not done by a guru. You know, it's something that you do yourself. There are no paths beyond the threshold. So you have to enter into that wilderness. You have to enter into that karma. You have to go into that belly. You have to do the golden path. You have to do it. No one is going to do it for you. People will do it alongside you, but no one is going to go for you, do it for you. So enjoy the fact that you've found a wisdom that is open countryside, that you can walk into and find your own free-spirited way through it. And that all those questions that you have, you will find the answers inside. If you follow that path, you're going to find those answers to all those questions, even the wildest questions. They're all inside. So I want to thank you all for listening and for coming here. And I'll see you again very soon.